Hello and welcome, Adam Thomas from Balancing Touch Reflexology. So good to see you and thanks for joining me today. Well, today I'm coming to you from Japan, which is really cool. I'm a little bit jet lagged, but other than that, I'm feeling pretty good and it's so great to be here in Japan. It's a great place to be. And the reason I'm here is we come here every summer. We bring our kids to school. They get to join the public school for a couple weeks and experience everything that Japan has to offer as far as schooling, and it's a great opportunity for them to sharpen up their Japanese and their writing skills as well. And I feel so great to be able to have that opportunity to let my kids experience that. So while I'm here in Japan, I want to show you a little bit around the place that I've been coming to for many years now, and I also want to share with you a little series that I'm going to put together on my understanding of foot reading. So I'm going to just break it down into bite-sized chunks so it's easy to understand, because foot reading is a very big topic. Just to put it out there, I'm definitely not an authority in foot reading. There's so many other people out there that are just amazing at it. But I have gotten such great insight by the little bit that I do know that I want to share with you, and I'm just going to put them together, like I said, in little bite-sized chunks, so that it's easy, hopefully, for you to understand the way that I, have gone about doing it, that I've found really useful for myself. So if you're new here, this channel is about, reflexology tips and tricks, and I sort of share as much as I can with you about the topic of reflexology. So if reflexology is something that you're into, feel free to subscribe, and make sure that you hit that little bell icon, because that way, when I get a new video out, especially when I'm doing videos like this series, you'll get notified when a new one comes out. So that's kind of a cool thing to do. So just hit that little bell icon. What we're going to talk about today, I thought, would be to jump into the big toes. So the big toes, they're really cool. So if we look at reflexology and we look at the zones, we're cut basically down the center here, and so we have 5 zones on this side, 5 zones on that side, right? And so our big toes fall right down the zones number 1, which is basically our head. So the toes are the head, and we have a right side and we have a left side. And so this is really cool because that gives us a right hemisphere of the head, or the brain, and also a left hemisphere of the brain. This is the head, and inside the head, basically, it houses our brain. And it's also a part of the central nervous system. Also, the cerebral, spinal fluid lives there. It also has to do with our visual and auditory, and basically any thinking functions, right? So our ideas, our thoughts, and sort of our vision that we have about our life or things to do, right, comes all in the head reflex, right? So this is really cool. So the main meaning behind the big toes is, I'll just say, thinking. There are thinking toes, right? And another thing to think about too is I just mentioned that there's a right and a left. So if we look at the right and the left brain, they work differently. So the right brain tends to be our creative brain. And then the left brain has to do with basically control. And now there's a little switchover that happens with the brain. So when I'm moving my right hand, it's actually firing in my left brain, right? And then vice versa, right? So I'm going like this, and this is firing over here. And so if we translate that down to the big toes, which these are not toes, but they're the thumbs, it also works for the thumbs. Then the right side has to do with, there's a crossover, right? And so crossover right side has to do with control now, right? And the left big toe has to do with creative. So now we have a couple things to look at. So now, first one we have is basically our thinking, or our ideas toes, right? That's are these. And now we have the right side. So thinking and thoughts and stuff that have to do with control. And also we have on this side basically thoughts and thinking that have to do with creative category, right? So now it's kind of cool, because if you see any type of redness or calluses or anything like that, you can kind of start to build a little bit of a story, right? For example, like calluses. Why do we get calluses? Calluses basically start to form because they're trying to protect us, right? So either there's some kind of outward, influence that is making us have to, build layers to protect ourselves, right? Or, maybe we're, putting ourselves in a situation that, we need to put up layers to protect ourselves, right? So either way, so sort of inner and also outer influences can determine what's going on there, right? So then you have, so if there's a callus on the left big toe, then there's some kind of like protection happening in the side of creativity, right? So you can start to look at that. Any type of redness, right? Redness has to do with heat, with friction, with, anger is very heated, that sort of thing. So, in their thinking, if we stick to the left side here, right, is they're frustrated with their creativity, or, maybe they're in a situation where they're not able to be creative, so they get really heated and fiery and that sort of a thing, right? So there's a lot to really look at, even though we have simple little categories, right? Over on the other side, maybe, it has to do with control. They're getting, angry at, say, work, for example, because they can't, they're feeling they're being controlled. Or maybe they're angry because they can't, control everything that's happening in the workplace and things like that. So there's kind of a lot more, and as we go on with these videos, I'll kind of share a bit more of these different categories that happen. One thing that I want to share with you, though, is a really cool visual cue. And what we're going to look at is, are the toes together when you put your feet together, or are they apart? So right now, look down at our feet, put our feet together, and do our toes come together? And my toes used to be apart. There used to be a definite split in them, and now they're more together. And also with this information as well, it's just information. It's, it's not a good thing or a bad thing. What we tend to do in the West is, we're giving something simple, like, given an idea of, if your toes are like this or like this, it means this. But we somehow think that it's bad, and we, turn it into guilt and shame or whatever it is that we do. But it has nothing to do with that. It just gives us information. So if the information that you get from your feet is serving you, then that's great. And if it's not, then it's great, because now you have some information that you can make some changes, right? So anyway, what does this mean? If your toes are together, you tend to be a person who can make decisions. And the reason being is, remember, like I said before, this is, the right hemisphere and the left hemisphere. Actually, the other way around, but because of the crossover, which is very confusing. But anyway, regardless, they're hemispheres of the brain. And so the communication between them is there's no space, right? Whereas toes that are further apart, it takes a bit more of a communication for them to come up with a decision. And again, with both of these, there's gifts and challenges in each, right? So for this person, they can make up their minds quickly and come to a decision quite rapidly. But sometimes they won't be able to see all the other options that are available, where this person tends to see all the options and has a hard time making up a decision. So this is a fun one that I share with my class a lot, is we'll all look at our feet and I'll go around and ask them where they want to eat for lunch. And it's really interesting. A lot of the people that have this open, they're like, oh, I don't know, I can eat anything, that's fine, I'll just go wherever everybody else sort of decides, right? So they're already, in a way, not even going to make a decision about it, because they can see so many options, right? They can go, they can have Italian or French or, whatever, right? Japanese or something else, right? So those kind of things, they see all the different options in them, and so it's hard for them to make up their mind because they see all the options. And that's one of the gifts, is that if the question at hand is, a restaurant, then they can see all the different options around them. Whereas somebody with their toes closer together, the question is very quick. They want either this or this, if that, right? They probably already know which direction they're going to go. So that's just a really neat one. So when you do see somebody with space in between their toes, and as you're working with them and they're talking about decisions that they have to make, this can be a real stressful topic for them. And so it's a good one for you to remember, because if it's something that it's simple as seeing their toes together or apart, then you can kind of know where they sort of sit on the level of making decisions. And like I said before, my toes have changed, and you'll notice too that once you're looking at your feet a lot, you'll notice that toes change and your feet change as you go through life, right? And that's one of the coolest things about being a reflexologist, is you're aware of your feet and you can see changes happening all the time. Because there's space between, any toes that you see space between, it basically means that there needs time, right? There's time for the communication to happen between the sides, or between the toes, right? So time is a bit is important, right? So for this person to make up, especially if it's something like a big decision, they do need the time to mull it over and make sure it's something that they really want to do. Because I've known in the past, I've gotten caught a lot by getting excited about something, and then I say yes, 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 and then guess what? I look at my schedule, or I get a little bit of space away from the initial question, and I realize, like, oh no, maybe that's something that I don't want to do, right? Like, it's kind of like, oh no, then how do I get out of it now? I've committed to it, and now how do I get out of it, right? So people that have toes apart like this, a really good advice that I give to any client who has that, that they basically need more time to make up a decision. And so what I learned from myself is, somebody will tell me something and I'll be like, oh yeah, that's really exciting, but just, I'll let you know about it tomorrow, or, in a couple days, my decision, right? I just need to check it out. And I think in my life, what's really helped me with that is having a family and kids. And I actually do have to go and check my schedule and check in with everybody to see if I can do that thing that I was asked, right? So in a way, that's sort of been forced upon me to be able to make decisions that are better for me, is by allowing myself to have more time. So that's a really cool little tip. So there you go. That's a couple of really cool things that I have found just to be really useful with the big toes, right? So if you have more, I would love to hear about them. I'm sure there's a lot more to this. But I like to keep it really simple, down to a couple things that help me, sort of navigate this whole foot reading process. So there you go. So anyway, I'll come to you with another topic soon. Maybe the next toes, maybe I'll just stick in line there. So yeah, again, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, feel free to do that. Hit that little bell icon, that way you'll get notified when I have the next video coming out. So until next time, this is Adam Thomas from Japan, Balancing Touch Reflexology. Have a good day and keep those feet happy. Bye-bye. Let me know what you thought of this video by leaving a comment below. Any type of feedback can be useful. If you like this video, you can give it a thumbs up. And if you found it useful, feel free to share it with anybody who might be interested. Make sure that you have subscribed to this channel if you haven't already. And make sure that you hit, or better yet, step on that bell icon so you know when the next video is coming out. And if you have some more time, why don't you check out some other videos? Till next time, this is Adam Thomas from balancingtouch.ca.